Like most Thomas fans, I was born in the mid-90s, the summer of 1995 to be exact. Most of my childhood, like many kids, consisted of the old Nick Jr. days, PBS Kids, the very early animated Disney movies, you name it. But nothing compared to my favorite franchise in the whole world, Thomas the Tank Engine.
Who else were you expecting?
By the time this movie came out, I was about to turn 5 right before I started kindergarten in September 2000. I remember laying in bed with my parents one weekend, and the first thing I wanted to watch was Thomas. Typical, right? I had a brand new tape added to my home media collection and was dying to check it out. I was sitting there thinking it was going to play like all my other Thomas tapes and get right to the stories. Imagine my elation when I saw this teaser trailer for the first time.
This summer, take a magical trip to a world unlike any other. An enchanting place where adventure is only a whistle away.
Little kid me was ecstatic, and as quickly as that trailer dropped, pretty soon my birthday rolled around, and my mother took me to see it as a late birthday gift. It was the best experience I've ever had as a child. This was the part of Thomas that I lived and breathed and quoted and talked about for ages. And it only got bigger when I started buying all of the merchandise for it. Now, as a full-grown adult, I, like so many others, are learning to adapt with changes in the world, and then coming back many times after to the movie that shaped my childhood, only to find out that many fans say that it sucks. A lot of people have talked about their distasteful thoughts on the film and why it was a huge derailment of the franchise. For many years, a lingering question was always in the back of my head. How could something so great from my childhood be hated on by so many other fans? What happened that made this movie bomb so badly? And an even bigger question that some have asked me personally: when is it my turn to talk about this movie? What are my personal thoughts on this? And maybe, just maybe, do I think a little differently compared to most fans? Well, my friends, you asked for it, you wanted me to do this. It is finally time for me to give my own opinions on Thomas and the Magic Railroad. I have pushed this video back for so many years, mostly because of Sony and their damn copyright nonsense, but also because, as many YouTubers before me have stated, there is a lot to talk about with this movie. What I originally planned was to rank all of the 14 Thomas movies into one simple video, but then I realized, not just with this movie, but there is a lot to talk about with each of the movies. Something that I don't think I could have squeezed all into one video, because then we'd be here all day. So each of the 14 movies are going to have a separate video dedicated to themselves, and then I will rank them afterwards, starting with this one. I am going to try and cover every bit of the finest details as I can and give you my overall personal thoughts on what I think about Magic Railroad as a whole. We'll talk about how this movie came to be, its production history, the goods and the bads of the movie, etc. So let's dive into this world of talking trains, folks far apart, and the Magic Railroad that brought them all together. This is Thomas and the Magic Railroad. One thing is absolutely certain. Thomas would not be as big as it is in the US had it not been for its origins. In order to bring Thomas into the States, Britt Allcroft and co-creator Rick Sigelko created a program for PBS Kids called Shining Time Station. For those who don't know, Shining Time Station was a show about a group of kids and adults who worked and played at a railroad station. A little man named Mr. Conductor, who lived in the station, first played by Ringo Starr, and later on George Carlin, would tell a Thomas story or two in reference to the plot of the episode. Shining Time Station became very successful here in the US, with 3 seasons, 4 one-hour-long specials, and 2 spin-off series. After the show came to a close, Britt wanted to make a movie that brought both worlds of Thomas and Shining Time together. She signed a deal with Paramount chairman Barry London until he stepped away from the company. A little while after, London became chairman of Destination Films, and the movie was back underway. A few bumps in the road, sure, but now everything was falling into place. Britt was finally going to make her movie. What could possibly go wrong? Well, just about everything. Let's start with the obvious. The fact that a decision was made to incorporate both worlds into one film already sends up a bunch of red flags. Other than the US and a few other countries, most other countries had no idea what Shining Time even was. They're coming to see a Thomas movie, not a whole bunch of adults they don't know. They're probably sitting there thinking,
what the fuck is this piece of shit?
So there's your first problem. You've alienated more than half of the globe to a show they're not even familiar with. And it only gets better from here. Allcroft stated many years later that the original idea she had for the story was drastically changed several times. One note is a side plot with George the Steamroller pairing up with Diesel 10. As someone who's not super big into George, this would have been a really good opportunity to do a little more with him for character development, instead of just using him in 3 classic series episodes and a sparse appearance in a later movie, only to kick his ass to the curb after the fact. On top of that, you had Lily, who was originally going to be the narrator, but was replaced by Mr. Conductor. Lady would communicate through telepathy, the human characters were to have more prominent roles, the list just goes on from there. But the most notable change is that the film completely cut out one character, P.T. Boomer, portrayed by Canadian actor Doug Lennox. Boomer was set to be the movie's main antagonist. This was changed due to the test audience finding him too scary for children, and Diesel 10 was soon replaced as the movie's main villain. Let me just say this. I don't know who the hell they got for the test audience, but they clearly had no idea what they were doing. They decided that a man who was looking for this engine for her golden trim to sell for money was the scariest thing about the movie? Meanwhile, the big, scary, mechanical diesel with the claw that has a mind of its own wasn't?
I'm sorry, what?
But some scenarios in Season 5 are totally appropriate, right? Ghosts, runaway boulders, engines being buried alive, engines dying, engines in near-death experiences. Oh, yeah, this is totally fine.
You know, for kids!
Need I also throw this in there? This was the character that made me cry in the theater during the frickin' chase scene. True story, by the way. Unfortunately, this was not the only thing the test audience complained about. According to them, the voices for the engines did not suit their characters. Examples of this were either Thomas, Percy, or James sounding a bit too old. I kinda agree with some of these complaints, if I'm being honest. Thomas, originally voiced by John Bellis, was replaced with Canadian actor Eddie Glenn to give him a much younger sounding voice.
You're being bossy, Gordon. Now, please excuse me. I'm meeting Mr. Conductor. He's looking after us while Sir Topham Hatt takes a much-needed holiday.
John, to me, does not sound how I would personally picture Thomas.
That's what buffers are for, to stop engines crashing. What are you doing in the sheds, James?
The same for Percy and James, originally voiced by Michael Angelis, but was recast with Linda Ballantyne and Susan Roman. Nothing against Angelis, I think his voices for these two are fine, but would they be my preferred voices for movie standards? Probably not. Diesel 10, Splatter, and Dodge also received the same treatment. Kevin Frank and Neil Crone took over the henchman Diesels from Patrick Breen for completely unknown reasons, and Neil Crone took over the main antagonist over Keith Scott as the original voice was deemed too scary for kids. Crone at first went with a Russian accent for Diesel 10, but the voice was deemed too offensive, so he went with a comedic New Jersey accent instead. Holy goddamn! How many times can one test audience make that many complaints to a Thomas movie? I know most of these changes were made for the better, but still, no wonder it had to go through so many rewrites. You guys chose a bunch of pussy-ass Americans as your test audience. The country that takes shit, especially in the film and TV industry, way too friggin' seriously. Bad move there, folks. Before jumping into the actual plot of the movie, I want to talk about a few more little things with the production. First off, the trains. Undeniably, they're the ones who steal the show whenever they're on screen. Thomas and all of his friends are exactly written the way they should be. Well, most of them anyway. Who the hell's decision was it to make Henry ill again and need to run on special coal? Wasn't this shit already taken care of in season 1? How could they do my favorite character a retconned injustice such as this? Oh shit, I just said that out loud. Yep, it's true. Henry is my new favorite, guys. I kicked James to the curb a long time ago. He and I are done.
Big bully.
Anyway, you gotta love when the characters are written so well that they include that very hilarious banter that we are all too familiar with from the original series.
James is right, little Thomas. Collecting Mr. Conductor is an important job, Important is big. James is a big engine, You, Thomas, are small. Small, 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 teeny, weeny, weeny. And I'm a big blue engine who knows everything.
Bossy sprockets! All that steam has gone to your funnel.
Other than the models, the sets are also amazing. They have that very scenic look to them with the bright and vibrant colors. This is the Sodor that we all know and love from the original show. Even the live-action shots are really pretty to look at. I am always in awe whenever something like a mountain scene is present. It's so gorgeous. My personal favorite is by far the look of the Magic Railroad. I love the dark and mysterious look to it during Thomas's bit, and then it gradually gets brighter when Lady runs on this gorgeous, colorful looking part. Sure, it may just be one straight piece of track, but I don't care. It's beautiful. But I think the biggest thing above all of that is the musical score. I already love the fact that Hummy Man incorporated some of the original themes and songs we already know from the show, done by Mike and Jr., and put his own little twist on them to make them sound more orchestrated. But the original songs and other bits of music are fantastic too. My favorite piece is when Thomas and Lily, or Lady, are traveling down the Magic Railroad. The freaking chills that I get every time I hear this is indescribable. I'm starting to notice a bit of a pattern here. As rocky as the production is with this movie, there's still some little positives to take away from it. And it can only get better from here, right? Right? So that was a long spiel about the origins and history of the film. Now it's time to actually talk about the plot. What the hell is this movie about? Well, for starters, Mr. Conductor is left in charge of the railway while Sir Topham Hatt is on vacation. I'm sorry, holiday. All the while, Diesel 10 is on the hunt for a mysterious magical engine called Lady and plans to destroy her in order to dominate all the other engines. Mr. Conductor then starts having problems with his gold dust and must find the source and the lost engine before he and Shining Time lose their magic forever. Meanwhile, widowed man Burnett Stone falls into despair when he cannot figure out the secret to Lady's magic and hides away in the mountains. His granddaughter Lily plans a visit, but sets off on her own journey to help Mr. C and her grandfather bring the magical engine back into steam and restore energy to the Magic Railroad. God damn, that was a mouthful. Fans for many years have claimed this plotline to be messy and confusing. This is where my opinion starts to slightly differ from most. I think it's pretty straightforward for the most part, even with the many changes that were made. Sure, we do tend to jump around a lot, but I don't really think it's that hard to follow, especially for a Thomas movie. And, oh yeah, that's right! Thomas? Who's Thomas? Do you guys know Thomas? I don't know nothing about an engine called Thomas. That's right, folks. Thomas is not the main focus of the film, which is by far the biggest critique any critic or fan has given. Don't get me wrong, he's still there. A roughly under 12 minutes, of course. Regardless, he's still there. But, given the movie's plot line, this clearly sounds more like a Shining Time movie, which, don't don't get me wrong, I'm completely all for it. I'm a huge Shining Time fan because... However, this does bear a few questions. Many fans have asked, was this Brit's attempt to bring Shining Time back after it ended on such a good high note? I thought this too for the longest time, but once it was stated that she had plans for a movie as far back as 1994, I theorized this movie was to take place somewhere in between the series, if not a little bit after. But due to all the hiccups, it was pushed back for so long, hence the big gap between the show and when the movie finally dropped. But an even bigger mystery is, why even bother having Thomas's name in the title when the movie isn't even about him? This was a question that bothered me for a long time until I finally figured it out. Because other countries like the UK, Germany, Japan, and so on haven't a clue what Shining Time is, or if you really want to go deeper, think of all the US kids that couldn't give a rat's ass about the show as a whole and are just mainly there for the Thomas episodes. It's no wonder the test audiences complained as much as they did with Thomas not being the center focus, because kids are not coming to the theater to watch a bunch of adults, they're here for the little blue bastard. Hey. This is the reaction of kids when the live-action adults are on screen, compared to how they act when Thomas is on screen. I can only assume investors probably noticed this too. They more than likely sat there thinking, well, we certainly can't call this Shining Time, the movie. It probably didn't sound as catchy nor interesting as Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Having anything Shining Time in the title, I doubt if a lot of people would really care, and you still alienate a huge portion of the globe. So when you really think about it, having Thomas in the title was really...
a marketing decision.
To be fair though, he does play a, big role, and I say that in quotation marks, when he takes Lily down the Magic Railroad back to Muffle Mountain. And that's it. His big to-do isn't even until the tail end of the movie, which is sad. Even when the climax happens, he's just kind of there for the ride. I guess this was the movie's way of saying, don't worry kiddies, Thomas still exists. I really wish they would have kept the scene where Lady veers into a siding and Thomas lures Diesel 10 to the viaduct, where he then falls off. This would have given Thomas an actual reason to be there in the chase at all, instead of just shoehorning him in just for the sake of it. Something else that kind of puzzles me is Diesel 10's whole plan. So we know he plans to dominate all of the steam engines by basically killing Lady. However, he explains that Lady is apparently the source of why the engines on Sodor are alive.
She escaped me once before. As long as she exists, so do the others.
Okay, but does this only apply to the steam engines? Wouldn't this also affect the diesels in some way? It sort of is, but mainly isn't explained here. If we really want to go deeper, what about these other questions? How long has it been since Diesel 10 was back on Sodor? Because clearly all the other engines know who he is.
Oh, Diesel 10's back! Oh.
Yes, 10 out of 10 for devious deeds and brutal strength. The blast from the past, who hates steam engines.
What did he do last time while he was here? Does Sir Topham Hatt know who Diesel 10 is? I mean, he clearly does, stated by Mr. C.
A big bully Diesel is back, Mr. Conductor. You had better be careful.
Sir Topham Hatt warned me about Diesel. Don't worry, Thomas.
So this bears the question, is Topham aware of what Diesel 10 supposedly did the last time? Does he know about the lost engine? Whilst he knew he was going on holiday, did he bring Diesel 10 back for an extra set of wheels to help out? Or did he come back on his own accord and somehow knew Topham was going to be away? You know, the more I think about it, the Thomas portions of this film are the most jumbled up, the deeper and deeper you look into things. Pulling away from that for a bit and focusing on the Shining Time portion, as an American fan, I think the portrayal of Shining Time in this movie is great. I love the look and feel of the station, they captured it so beautifully. For the plotline in this portion, I think this is honestly more straightforward than the Thomas bits. At least we have a good overall idea of what's going on. But if there's one tiny little thing I had to gripe over, it's how Lady finally makes her return. Burnett has tried every coal in the valley to get Lady to work, but to no avail. And what coal finally brings her back, you ask? None other than Henry's special Welsh coal, now changed to be the special Island of Sodor coal. I really don't know who to put the blame on for this one, Brit or the writing team. I don't understand how they retcon such an important part of Henry's backstory like it meant nothing. Other than this horrendous hiccup, there are some bits of the plot that I still like to an extent, but I can definitely see why it's just too messy and confusing for some. Now pulling away from the story, let's talk about the characters, starting with the engines. Other than Henry, I would say the engines are pretty on point. Thomas is still the happy-go-lucky one, but still has a bit of cheekiness to him. Gordon is still very pompous and snobby. James is the smug and vain asshole we know him as. Percy is very scared easily, but is a very loyal friend to Thomas. And Toby is the wise one with a leftover spring in his step. These are the characters that we all know and love. And as for their voices, I think they're all pretty solid. As for the newbies, I don't really have anything too much to say about Splatter and Dodge because they don't really contribute anything big to the story. They're just there. However, I will say though, I do like the voices that Neil Crone and Kevin Frank provide for them.
Destroy? Did you say destroy?
D word.
Like hurt?
Yeah, destroy.
There's one small problem there, boss. Yeah, Mr. Conductor's coming, and he won't let you destroy.
He won't let you.
Diesel 10, while on the surface seems a bit too out there for Thomas, I will say he's a very interesting character. You can clearly tell he's not taken seriously by the other engines. They probably look at him like he's a joke. No wonder he rides around with a stick up his ass about the steamies. I really like the comedic approach to his character. For someone that's not to be taken super seriously, I think this was the correct approach, and this is all done with the talent of Neil Crone.
Well, what are you gonna do? Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. It's time to finally put Twinkle Toes lights out.
Oh?
This is a job for the boss!
And as for Lady, most people don't really have a lot to say about her, because even her big to-do is not until the final act of the film. I spoke about this with another circle of friends, and we like to view her a little differently compared to most. Lady is the source of all life on Sodor, right? Britt Allcroft created the show. She also voices Lady. You see where I'm going with this? We view Lady as the embodiment of Britt herself. Without Britt, there would be no show. Without Lady, there would be no life on the island, if you really wanted to look at it that way. It may seem a little far-fetched, I know, but when you're dealing with a show that dives into the world of talking trains, I ask you, does it really seem that out of the blue? That's just something to think about. Moving on to the human characters, right off the bat, I really don't have anything much to say about Stacy, Billy, or Patch because they don't have prominent enough roles. I like them, I just don't know what to say about them other than the voice acting is pretty good. So let's start with Mr. Conductor. I actually really like Alec Baldwin's portrayal of the character. I sort of see it like a mixture of both Ringo and George's versions. Ringo, who was the serious, stands for no-nonsense guy, while George had that same serious but also caring, gentle side to him. I see this in Baldwin's portrayal, but he also strikes me as the guy who acts a little more responsibly. Well, most of the time. But fans have also complained that his acting can either be a little over the top or melodramatic depending on the scene. I personally view it as the dude is just going with whatever is given to him, as we all know this was a difficult script to work with after all, so he's just trying to have a ball with it. There are some points in the movie where I find him absolutely hilarious. I really think what it boils down to is you either like him or you don't. And me personally, I like his humor and personality for the character. Lily is another that I don't love, but also don't hate, if that makes any sense. Don't get me wrong, I do like her, but I wouldn't call her a favorite of mine. Many have complained about how she is so naive to the point where she gets on the wrong train, all because she followed a dog that she didn't even know. And yes, I know, what realistic kid would actually do this? And she also, in my opinion, could have done a little better with her line delivery in some scenes, but I'm willing to overlook it a bit because, again, we don't know what direction Mara was given on set, and you gotta understand, this was during the time she had just lost her mother. So if she doesn't sound that enthusiastic, can you really blame her? so I'm giving her a slap on the wrist. Burnett Stone has also become a bit controversial by fans. Many have claimed Peter Fonda is trying too hard to sound sad and that his character is too depressed. Well, put yourself in the character's position. He marries the love of his life, becomes the guardian to Lady, she gets damaged, and then Tasha dies. Now, not only can't he bring Lady back into steam, but think of the tremendous amount of guilt he feels for thinking he not only let Lady down, but Tasha for not getting their special shining time together. If that were any one of us in a similar position, wouldn't you be depressed too? And this is why the connection with Lily and her grandfather is so important by the end of the film. Now that Lily truly understands just how important Lady means to Burnett, she tells him to not shut everything and everyone out. Otherwise, he'll be lonely for the rest of his life, as explained in the original cut of the scene when Burnett finally lets out all of his grief.
Oh, I wanted to take Tasha on our shining time.
On your shining time?
That wonderful journey when the train wheels turn and the rails shine. It was always going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow Lady would work again. Tomorrow everything would be perfect. And it was too late. And I shut out tomorrow.
Grandpa, don't shut out today, too.
It seems like this, I really wish they would have kept in the final cut, as this is not only emotional, but very impactful. And I think Fonda just about nailed it. But I think my favorite out of all the human characters is definitely Junior. We've seen this kind of character before. The laid-back, lazy, go-with-the-flow kind of guy. This is another instance where I believe Michael E. Rogers is just having fun with the character to the best of his ability.
Now, don't look so surprised. I know you haven't seen me since...
You stuffed party poppers down my funnel.
Hey, we had a laugh.
You did.
You're talking to each other.
Ah, first prize. Lily, Thomas. Thomas, Lily. Now, where's my cousin?
I absolutely love when he and Baldwin are on screen together. They have such a wacky dynamic. I honestly wish we got a movie about them. Speaking of which, to no one's shock, fans also have their gripes with Mr. Conductor trusting Junior to be a conductor at the end of the film. Well, think about it like this for a second. When we first see Junior, he acts like he couldn't give a damn about what's going on. He knows that his cousin needs his help, but all he wants to do is get back to the beach. Only when he's hijacked by Diesel 10 and saves himself and James, he knows they're in much deeper trouble, but still tries to make light of the situation. The moment I feel like reality finally slapped Junior in the face is this scene right here.
Oh, are we glad to see you? Now we can go back to shining time.
Junior, we won't make it back to shining time without the gold dust. Without it, the magic can't exist.
Once again, Junior thinks everything will just be fine, but now he truly starts to understand the severity of the situation. And after everything is finally sorted, you can just tell how much he's changed. I mean, look at how much he values Lily as a friend by keeping his word to her. Would he have thought to do something like that in the beginning? Probably not, but he did in the end. And look at him realizing that life is not all about play and wanting to step up to the plate ready for work. That alone should really tell you how much he's matured as a character. And that is why he is one of my favorite things about this movie. So with all that said and done, I'd say the characters, for the most part, are all pretty okay to good, in my opinion. So now that we've talked about the production of this movie, its plot, and the characters, it's now time to discuss the original work print. As we all know, the final cut of the film was not the original intended version, and the work print had many different things cut from it, much to Allcroft's dismay. For over 20 years, fans have pondered over the question, was the original work print better than the final? Well, in 2020, Shout Factory announced that a Blu-ray of Magic Railroad was to be released for the 20th anniversary, which featured several different bonus features like cast interviews and the long-awaited release of the near 2-hour-long work print. So, was it really everything we all dreamed of? Not exactly. The most notable change is all the scenes with P.T. Boomer, as this now answers that he was intended to be the movie's main antagonist, and Diesel 10 was a secondary villain. Some of the original voices are also present, and again, I'm not the biggest fan. Bellis doesn't suit Thomas, Keith Scott is fine, and Angelus is good, but not my preferred voice. Something I do want to bring up that I didn't mention before, I know that fans have said it would have been cool to have Angelus as James and Percy because, in a way, it would have been a nice link to the original series. I get that. The problem I have with that is only UK and other country fans would know who he is. The US wouldn't, because we didn't get exposed to Angelus until Season 7 with the drop of the New Friends for Thomas VHS. So, in a way, wouldn't that have kind of alienated us in a sense? Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. The beginning of this movie is also notably different, as it features a grown-up Lily and Patch telling their story to their kids, and it opens up with Lily and her mother in the big city. They even show us some technical stuff, like, for example, how they filmed the Thomas prop on a green screen, which I'm so glad they didn't end up doing and used a CGI model instead. And there's even a few alternate scenes, like this one with Mr. Conductor in Topham's office sniffing a marmalade jar.
Best marmalade.
What in the goddamn?
Look, I don't know what the intention was here. Maybe it was to add some kind of humor, I don't know. If there's one thing that I actually really liked about this original print, it was the added-on backstory on Burnett and Tasha. I feel like this should have been kept in, because we would have actually had a deeper look at how happy Burnett was back in the day before becoming sad and lonely years later. And I feel like that might have had a slight bit more of an impact on the movie. But pulling away from that, let's talk about how P.T. Boomer might have worked as the original intended villain. Well, the backstory for him is that he was an enemy of Burnett's back when they were younger, and he was jealous because Tasha loved Burnett and not him. For many years, he took his hateful vengeance on Burnett, threatening to find Lady and sell her trim for scrap. This is his main goal throughout the entire film, and tries to get people to give him any leads or tries to find a way into Burnett's workshop himself. He eventually finds the entrance to the Magic Railroad and appears later on top of Diesel 10 during the chase scene, but he and Diesel 10 ultimately meet their fate when they fall off the collapsing viaduct. I don't find Boomer to be all that scary as test audiences originally claimed. In fact, I don't even find him all that intimidating. He comes off as a bit of a douchebag, honestly. And when you look at his and Diesel 10's plan, they have the same idea. To find and destroy Lady. Yeah, it's for totally different reasons, but it's the same thing. So why would you amp up Diesel 10 going as far back as the teaser, then bring in this human character that practically had the same goal? Wouldn't that make Diesel 10 irrelevant? Something else I wanted to point out, what exactly are Boomer's motives here? We know he hates Burnett because Tasha loved him, and whatever period it was when Burnett became the caretaker of Lady, Boomer is one of those individuals that doesn't understand the beauty of magic, hence why he crashes her the first time. Now, Boomer must know that Tasha is dead, right? If you were to think about it like this, is he just doing all of this out of hateful jealousy? Does he even care that Tasha is gone? Because it's almost like he thinks, you can't have her and I can't have her, and now that she's gone, I'm gonna take away the one thing left in your life, leaving you alone forever. Thus getting his revenge. Did anybody actually stop and think about how petty that actually sounds? I may have looked into that a little too deep, but I think it makes sense given these two and their whole backstory. I feel like PT could have definitely worked more as a villain had they tweaked his character a bit more to not literally be the same as Diesel 10. Cutting him from the final film was a very wise choice, and having Diesel 10 as the main villain, as not only as a child did I find him intimidating, but also very scary. The narrator change I'm kinda neutral with. Mr. Conductor as the later change isn't bad, because the US already was introduced to him via Season 5, but I think it would have been more interesting to have Lily be the narrator and listen to her tell the story. I think the only part of Lily's story that I wouldn't have personally kept was her worrying about her mom having a baby, as mentioned in the middle of the work print.
I want to go home. I miss Mom. I don't want a little brother or sister.
It's glanced at, but I don't think it needed to be mentioned as it contributes nothing in the final cut. Another scene I wish would have been kept was this one when Burnett calls Stacy looking for Lily.
No. Lily wasn't on the one on train. This one goes straight to Shining Time. Yes, Stacy. Well, let me know if you see her. I'd appreciate it.
I think this scene was a critical one, as it would have actually shown Burnett to show his caring and worrying attitude towards his granddaughter, but because it was cut, in the final version he comes off as rather cold and distant to her. Which leads me into the dinner scene with Burnett and Lily, where we get another glimpse into Burnett's backstory.
That was Grandma's favorite song.
He loves,
Yes, it was.
and she loves, and they love, so won't you love me?
Which leads into another scene, when Lily tries to ask her grandpa about her grandma, and Burnett says he can't remember, which then Lily angrily runs away and is shown here sitting alone.
Grandma was against it, didn't she?
Yes.
And you danced with her.
You know, I can't remember.
Yes, you can.
Even cute little moments like this, when Lily and Mr. C have their small conversation, I wish they kept in.
So you really do love Junior, don't you?
Yes, even though he makes me mad sometimes, but that's what families are for. Someone to be there for you in the bad times as well as the good. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Or like I mentioned earlier, this impactful scene with Burnett and Lily. But of course, my favorite of the alternate scenes are the ones with extra dialogue with Thomas and Lily traveling on the Magic Railroad. There's that damn pattern again, good God.
Mr. Conductor needs to...
Oh! Lily? Lily? Where are you? What am I going to do? Think! That's it! I'm going to be really reliable and find her. I'm going back for that coal truck. Don't worry, I'm on my way.
It is honestly baffling to me just how much of the original print was cut from the final film. Most of these changes I understand were made for the better, but even some little scenes I wish they would have kept in, as most of them would have flowed a little smoother in the final. And let's be real, I honestly don't think a couple of seconds would have killed them. I mean, come on, really? I feel like this print could have entirely worked had it gone through just a few more tweaks, and maybe it could have been more solid. It may not be the movie that we all dreamed it would be, but I do see some bit of potential here. And at least now, we finally got our answers to these questions we've had for over 20 years, and can now be put to rest. This shouldn't come as a shock to anyone, but the movie in the end failed miserably at the box office. In time, it earned some of its money back through merchandise sales, and Thomas did become a household name, perhaps not for all the right reasons, but still. This begs the question, why did this movie bomb so badly? It had nothing to do with the fact that the plot was confusing or that the movie didn't focus on Thomas, etc., but the fact they incorporated the magic element, which is something that has pissed off fans for many years. The magic in this movie pretty much took away the realism the original series had from the first 4 seasons. Everything that happened was set in the real world, and anything that did happen in the show actually happened. This is something that fans have stated that this is what drew a lot of us to the show in the first place. While I do have a much better understanding and respect for the show in that regard, that was never how I viewed Thomas as a kid. I am not a train enthusiast. I think you can tell. I wasn't fascinated by the fact that all of the trains were doing real train things. I was more so taken back that the engines could talk, and I thought maybe all machines could do this with a hint of magic. I thought Sodor was not only real, but a real magical island that I could one day visit if I ever got a hold of gold dust. These were just innocent child thoughts that I had when I was younger. I couldn't give a rat's ass about real locomotives or the real history that happened, because as a kid, that wasn't what drew me personally to the show. So do I really have a problem with the whole magic element? And do I think it's the worst thing to come out of Thomas? No, because if we're going by that logic, I don't count it as canon to the original series. I count it more towards Shining Time Station. Now hear me out for a sec. The only magical thing in the show is Mr. Conductor, and he talks as if Sodor is real, but how does he get there? By gold dust. So it seems that Sodor, in this aspect of the show, is a separate bubble from the real world. And when you think about it that way, it doesn't seem too outlandish if you don't count it as canon to the original series and only for here. Because from season 6 onwards, nothing that happens in this movie is ever mentioned again. Therefore, it is most definitely not canon. You know, as many gripes as I and many others have with this movie, I would be totally lying if I said I hated it. And that is certainly not the case here. Make no mistake here, there are things that I don't particularly like, but for me, there is a lot more good that kind of outweighs the bad, at least in my opinion. And to be completely honest, I feel like even with all the goods and the bads this movie provided, I think this movie to a degree deserves a little more credit. To repeat what YouTubers like Trainboy have said, what was it about this show that intrigued us? Not just the fact that most of what happened in the show were based off of real events. I'm more so talking about season 5 and onwards for this. Thomas was never afraid to take risks and push the envelope as to what kind of situations the engines could get into, some of which we don't ever see again. And because of this, the show has provided some of the most incredible episodes that have gone on to be fan favorites. If you were to apply that to this movie, it took a risk that put these characters in a very out there situation, and one that we do not ever see again. It may not have been the best idea ever, but the risks they took, I feel like should be more appreciated. It's times like this even now that I can't help but feel so bad for Britt. I feel like to a degree she had some kind of a clear vision on what she wanted, but through all of the changes that were made and being a total flop at the box office, it's no wonder her spirit was so broken after this and why she stepped down. I won't sugarcoat this when I say, had she and whoever else on the writing team took a little more time to fix any mistakes and maybe found a way to equally balance out Thomas and Shining Time, or if you cut that out and you mainly focused on Thomas, this movie probably would have been better. I cannot speak for everyone when I say that, in my opinion, through all the bumps that this movie has, I can clearly tell that there was a lot of love and passion put into it. Execution-wise, it just didn't click with everyone. Which, hey, if you like it, you like it. If not, alright, move on. I guess the last thing I need to say is, as either good or bad as this movie may be to some, let me say this. It ain't Misty Island Rescue, it's not Day of the Diesels, and it's most certainly not Big World Big Adventures. I will gladly take Magic Railroad over these annoyances any freaking day. It may not be the greatest movie and the start of some low points for Thomas, but it is most certainly not the lowest. This movie holds a very special place in my heart. It was one of the happiest things about my childhood, and it's just one of those things that I refuse to let go of and never will. And that's it. Those are my thoughts on Thomas and the Magic Railroad. I want to thank you all for watching, and be sure to like this video, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more reviews like this and other Thomas-related content. I suppose there's only one way we need to close off this video.
And so we've come to the happy end of our story, and it's time for all of us to go home. Just like Thomas.